Donald Trump's wife, Melania, in her first major political speech on Monday, portrayed her husband as a talented, compassionate, and unrelenting leader who would unify rather than divide the country if elected to the White House. With the Olympics less than 3 weeks away, the IOC on Monday promised the toughest sanctions available after a report found Moscow had concealed hundreds of positive doping tests in many sports ahead of the Sochi Winter Games. Turkey vowed on Tuesday to root out allies of the U.S.-based cleric it blames for a failed coup attempt last week after an already deep purge of the army, police, and judiciary, and said it had sent Washington evidence of his wrongdoing. North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles on Tuesday, which flew between 500 and 600 kilometers, or 300 to 360 miles, into the sea off its east coast, South Korea's military said. The latest is in a series of provocative moves by the isolated country. Even after years of lean times, big U.S. banks are coming under new pressure to cut costs. But management teams are finding some expensive simply won't budge, like the $1 billion a year it costs Bank of America Corporation to shuffle papers around and transport money in armored trucks. Turkey's National Intelligence Organization suspended 100 people, most of whom were not active agents, on suspicion they maintained links to a religious movement blamed for a failed coup attempt, a senior Turkish official said on Tuesday. France's government, smarting from accusations that it did not do enough to avert last week's deadly truck attack in Nice, urged lawmakers on Tuesday to extend a period of emergency rule that gives police greater search and arrest powers. According to the French government spokesperson, Stéphane Le Foll, French police have arrested a 23-year-old cab driver after finding explosive at his home in a district southeast of Paris. In a case that could have an impact on the November presidential election, the Virginia Supreme Court will hear a Republican lawsuit on Tuesday challenging the restoration of voting rights of 206,000 felons by Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe. From the Canadian News Network in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, I'm Rob McConnell.
It was a terrifying experience.
I thought we was going to go to jail for murder.
That day, we're a little behind, so we worked until it was starting to get dark.
We loaded up the equipment and hadn't driven very far when we caught glimmers of this glow coming through the trees. I urged Mike to hurry up and get up there.
Travis had the door open before we even stopped. As he got closer, I heard the sound.
One of the guys said, "You feel that?"
I really panicked then.
I told him, "Get the hell out of here."
It didn't come directly to me. It came to a deputy sheriff. 3 of us volunteered right away to tell him what had happened.
Sheriff Gillespie definitely didn't believe it.
He says that we better be certain because we get in a lot of trouble.
When we went to search the next day, they split us up. And the whole time, the deputies asked me, if you just tell us where the body is, we can all go home and get this over with.
We're talking about 100 people combing through the wooded area. Nothing turns up.
All week long, I've been hearing they're going to set it up to make you guys look guilty.
We're a rough-looking bunch then. Some of us have been in trouble with the law before.
Y'all ain't never going to come out of that jailhouse.
We couldn't get out.
I tried to sneak out the back door the day of the polygraph test. I was scared to death.
On top of that, you have media.
I literally would be on 2 telephones at the same time.
We've even got some coops in here now that's coming in and out to see the freak show, as they call it.
Everyone descends.
I just wasn't going to stand there and listen to it anymore.
Granny said, "This is Travis. I'm back. I need help." When I did hear that he had been returned, it was almost as unbelievable as the original thing.
I just looked at my mom and says, "I told you we didn't kill him."
Travis Walton reappeared after several days with a bizarre story about a ride in an unidentified flying object.
People were desperate to explain it away. Why are you sticking up with Travis for all this time? You know this really didn't happen.
What happened to Travis after we took off in that truck, I can't tell you.
I hated Travis for a long time after this. My whole world just tore up.
But I believe every word Travis said about it. He's never lied to me about nothing.
It's a net negative. We lost our jobs in the immediate aftermath.
And now you're not able to talk about it with anyone because you know that they're going to laugh at you, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
But if you don't come out and tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. There's a degree of responsibility. Certainly I have to accept the bad. If I can direct what's happened in a way that I can make something good happen in the world, I'm looking for it.
Order your copy of Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton, today at www.traviswaltonthemovie.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, as well as the IPBN Radio Network, just to name a couple. If you'd like to send an email, studio@xzoneradiotv.com, and all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is a lady I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. Karen Forrest is her name, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's angels, because Karen is the angel lady, and she is the Canadian best-selling author of Angels of the Maritimes, Canadian Angels, Angels of the Maritimes Volume Two, and most recently, her autobiography, Angel Lady of the Maritimes. Karen works as an angel therapy practitioner, teaches various spiritual workshops, offers private angel readings, does house cleanings, at her own home. She does house clearings for everybody else. Private mentorship as a motivational speaker. All in all, this lady is an angel, and Karen is joining us from all the way into one of the most beautiful provinces in Canada, Prince Edward Island. And Karen Forrest, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Thank you for having me on again. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
So what is new with you in the world of angels? You've moved to Cornwall, PEI?
Yeah, that's right, which was interesting because I wasn't expecting this move. I was divinely guided to do this move when I was meditating and constantly asking angels what's the next step in my life. And when it came to receiving guidance about moving, that was unexpected to me. I was not expecting to move to Prince Edward Island, and I have to admit I was very resistant to the idea at first. I had to do a lot of healing with angels to get over myself to make that decision to move.
Now, where were you the last time I spoke to you?
Nova Scotia.
That's right. Yeah, you were in Halifax. Yeah. Right. Son of a gun. Well, you're still in the beautiful Maritimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's gorgeous this time of year being by the beaches.
Yeah, it's gorgeous this time of the year, but the winters there are horrific.
Yes, they are. That was one of my resistances. Long winters.
Wow. Well, you've got a new book. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my newest book is my autobiography, Angel Lady of the Maritimes. Mm-hmm. And my publisher, Leslie Choice from Pottersfield Press, was asking me for a few years now to write my autobiography.
Right.
And it has worked quite a few of my clients saying, when are you going to write your story? Because you're writing other people's stories and other people's encounters, but we want to hear more about you. And at first I thought, well, that's boring. My life appears, whatever.
Come on.
And yet I kept receiving so many requests that I finally decided start to write the book. And it was a process. At first, it just started with me taking some notes that the angel said, look, when you write your book, your autobiography, here's what you need to include. So it's little bits and pieces of paper that had notes written on that I had saved up for a few years before I finally said, okay, this is it. I've been divinely guided now to actually write my autobiography. Yeah. So I was really pleased with the response. We sold out of the first print before even the book launched. Like, we were running out of book copies so quickly, which was great. It was a regional bestseller.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All right, you and I have to take our first break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Exo Nation, our guest this hour is the angel lady herself, Karen Forrest. And Karen is going to be talking to us more about angels when we come back on the other side of this break. If you'd like to find out more about Karen, if you'd like to order her books, see what she's all about, maybe you'd even like to contact her for a one-on-one consultation, there's one simple place to go, and that's her website at www.karenforrest.com. That's Karen, and Forrest has 2 R's here, Exo Nation, so it's Karen, Forrest.com. Angels. I love that topic. I believe in angels. I really do. And we'll talk more about angels when we come back from this break. Whatever you do, don't go away. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Karen Forrest. Her website is www.karenforrest.com, and that is Forrest with 2 R's. Karen, How did you get it? Where does the interest in angels come from?
For myself personally, that was with my Catholic upbringing, actually. I was always taught to believe in angels and God, and I've always felt a comfort level saying prayers from my upbringing to my guardian angels, like praying at night to my angels and being encouraged to pray and talk to your angels. So I've had that as a child, that comfort level with them.
So what was it that inspired you to become the angel lady? Like, what was the...
that's a little bit different considering my military background.
Yeah,
your biological background as a mental health nurse.
Yeah, so I know that you were in the mental health business, and I know that you were in the military.
That's right. Yeah, and what happened? First of all, I didn't expect. I never planned to grow up and be the angel lady or to communicate with angels and dead people like I do now. That was not in my plans and career-wise. Not even just doing it for fun or passion or anything. It was not my plan in life. It wasn't until I was in my late 30s, I was around 38 or so, that I started to take some extensive spiritual training. And I took a workshop called Learn to Talk to Your Angels, just really by fluke, I thought at the time, that started to open my eyes to more divine communication, communicating with angels directly. And it fascinated me so much that I just delved right into it and started taking expensive and extensive spiritual training, going down to the States to get my Angel Therapy Practitioner course and other certifications I have. And then, because I've always, at a young age, even as a teenager, I made a commitment to myself and God, I would always follow my life path. I didn't always know where it would take me or what that involved, but I said, wherever it is, whatever you guide me to do, I will do it, even if it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So I started to get guidance before I retired from military saying, when you retire, you're not going to continue to be a mental health nurse. You're not going to work as a spiritual counselor, talking to angels and dead people. and again, I was resistant at that at first, going, that just sounds flaky. That's not who I am. I'm not a flaky person.
Yeah.
So I struggled with that a bit, and I talk about that in the book, where I had my very frank conversations with God saying, is this really what you want me to do? And the answer kept coming up, yes, this is what we're asking you to do. So I did, because I said, I've always honored my life path, no matter where it takes me. I made that decision to do that.
Plus, it's not nice to go against God.
No, well, it just makes life a little harder.
Yeah.
I don't want to make my life harder. And truly, I do believe in honoring your life path and doing what feels right, or you're being intuitively guided or being pushed to do at any given time, even if it wasn't what you expect in life. As I said, I did not expect to work as a professional medium like I am now. That was not my expectation, even a few years before I started doing that work.
So what is your forte? What is your strength? Is it being an angel communicator? Is it being a medium? Yeah. Is it being a ghost clearer, or is it everything?
All that. My main passion and interest is communicating with angels and God for guidance and healing. So the focus of my work is healing, but that includes my ability to communicate with your relatives in heaven, because that's healing for people. But make it clear, when you have a private session with me as a medium, still the focus is healing as to how to help you heal through your grief.
Well,
right? But by talking to your deceased, that helps.
Well, if you talk to people who are in heaven, then all my relatives won't be there, because they're at the other place probably. No, that's not right. That's not right.
They're there. And then, I also, in the last 2 years, have been more guided to do what I call house clearings, house and business clearings, and other types of clearings. And that's to give people a sacred place to be able to support them on their life path, right? And to just have a sacred and a divine place, and a loving place, and peaceful place to live and to work. Because a lot of the clearings I do, it's not just homes. I do house clearings in workplaces, including today. I was actually doing a clearing on a school, on a public school.
Cool.
In Prince Edward Island. Yeah. And the reason I was asked to do that is one of the teachers at the school had told me that a janitor had unfortunately committed suicide in the school. He hung himself, And some of the children who were very intuitive, and this is a younger grades, were seeing his ghost, and was very disturbing to the children. And they're telling the teachers and principals, who's this person I'm seeing? Who's this that person? Who is he? And he's following me around. And so a couple of the teachers approached me and said, "Can you do something about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, a simple clearing can take care of that, and help that soul cross over to heaven." So even in my clearings, my focus is not just to clear the place. If there is a person who hasn't crossed over yet, my job then, with very specific training I have, by the way, it's not for everyone to do that, but the training I have is to help earthbound spirits cross over so that they can continue their soul progression in heaven where they belong, rather than being stuck here on earth.
So how do you get a spirit to cross over? And like here, you've got this school, you've got this janitor who's probably been going through the halls trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yep, that's exactly it. Roaming around, doing lost.
So how do you get him to listen to you and to scoot towards the light?
Yeah, it's actually, most of the time it's pretty easy, because when angels first asked me to do this type of work, like to work with ghost releasement, basically, I'm like, what do you need me for? I'm just caring for us. I'm just some human being. Like, seriously, you're angels. You can do this. Why do you need me as a human being? And they said, because another soul will relate better to a human being. So that's why it's easier and for me to facilitate the process as a human being, because a soul was more apt to feel comfortable to me as a human being than they are towards angels sometimes, because sometimes they're afraid of the light, or scared of that, or they hold back from it. So really my job is, and it doesn't take long, by the way, it only normally takes a couple minutes to cross over a soul, but I communicate with them directly, and this is all by intent. I don't have to be in the school to do this. I don't need the ghost living in front of me. But I tell them, look, you're safe, it's okay to cross over, you've passed away, it's time to move on. So that's one of the ways I start to communicate with the soul, to say that you're safe and it's okay. Literally go to the light, go to the light, go to it. But then I also am trained to call forward that soul's relatives who are already in heaven too, to come forward and help cross them over too. So sometimes I'm doing that, and then I'm also talking to the soul to reassure them, to see what's going on, what do you need to cross you over. Yeah, but normally they just need a compassionate human being to help them cross over. That's all they need.
But why wouldn't they cross over in the first place?
There's a few reasons, Rob, but really surprisingly for me, the number one reason I've noticed in my experience in helping ghosts cross over is that they're afraid of the light, because they have been taught through religion or culture that there's a God that's going to damn them and send them to hell, which isn't the case, but that's what they believe. So they're afraid of the light because they're afraid they're going to be judged and go to hell.
Well, let's say we're talking about a God who destroyed two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. We're talking about a God who flooded the entire planet except for one family, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Ask the poor Egyptians. So you know what? They may have a point there.
Yeah, they do, and I understand that. I can see why they're afraid of that. I understand. Until I developed a personal relationship with God, I would have been afraid of Him too. Until I made a more personal relationship and not fear-based energy. But that's honestly the number one reason. And then occasionally it's because someone has committed suicide. They have a lot of regret, so that they haven't crossed over too.
All right, Karen, I just have to remind our listeners that earlier tonight we received a message from the Canadian News Network, which is on the other side of the building, that there was a geomagnetic storm warning. Unexpectedly, a CME struck Earth's magnetic field during the late hours of July 19th. The impact sparked a minor G1 class geomagnetic storm that could intensify in the hours ahead as Earth passes through the CME's strongly magnetized wake. For more information, visit www.spaceweather.com. Karen Forrest is our guest. She's known as the Angel Lady. And Karen, how would somebody know, or what are some of the signs that their house is haunted or that they've got a ghost in their house?
Sure. Yeah. It's unfortunately all too common. That's why I'm so busy with house clearings. Some of the signs is that, first of all, part of your house will feel creepy to you. You won't want to be in certain parts of your house basements are common, but sometimes it's other parts of their house. Like I remember one lady moved into a home and she never liked her kitchen, even though she used to love to cook, but she just stopped cooking, stopped going in her kitchen, stopped entertaining people. And when I tuned into the energy of her house, I before I learned that from her, I said, do you realize the worst part of your house is your kitchen? And she goes, well, that explains why I never go in there and cook anymore like I used to. She lost that joy, right?
Yeah.
So it's affecting her life and her social life too. So if one part of your house feels creepy, if it just feels cold or just negative, or you feel like you're being watched or spied on it, like in a creepy way, that's not good. That says there's something. But then other people get very physical signs. Like, I mean, I had one man who hired me. He had a business. This is in downtown Dartmouth, where I used to live, and he had a ghost who literally. And this is a nasty situation.
All right, why don't we do a bit of a cliffhanger here? When we come back, we'll talk about the guy with the the nasty ghost of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Yep.
Karen Forrest is our special guest. www.karenforrest.com, and Forrest has 2 R's. And Karen and I will return talking about the nasty ghost of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia when we return here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
From the Canadian News Centre, I'm Rob McConnell. Donald Trump's wife Melania, in her first major political speech on Monday, portrayed her husband as a talented, compassionate, and unrelenting leader who would unify rather than divide the country if elected to the White House. With the Olympics less than 3 weeks away, the IOC on Monday promised the toughest sanctions available after a report found Moscow had concealed hundreds of positive doping tests in many sports ahead of the Sochi Winter Games. Turkey vowed on Tuesday to root out allies of the U.S.-based cleric it blames for a failed coup attempt last week after an already deep purge of the army, police, and judiciary, and said it had sent Washington evidence of his wrongdoing. North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles on Tuesday, which flew between 500 and 600 kilometers, or 300 to 360 miles, into the sea off its east coast, South Korea's military said. The latest is in a series of provocative moves by the isolated country. Even after years of lean times, big U.S. banks are coming under new pressure to cut costs. But management teams are finding some expensive simply won't budge, like the $1 billion a year it costs Bank of America Corporation to shuffle papers around and transport money in armored trucks. Turkey's National Intelligence Organization suspended 100 people, most of whom were not active agents, on suspicion they maintain links to a religious movement blamed for a failed coup attempt, a senior Turkish official said on Tuesday. France's government, smarting from accusations that it did not do enough to avert last week's deadly truck attack in Nice, urged lawmakers on Tuesday to extend a period of emergency rule that gives police greater search and arrest powers. According to the French government spokesperson, Stéphane Le Foll, French police have arrested a 23-year-old cab driver after finding explosive at his home in a district southeast of Paris. In a case that could have an impact on the November presidential election, the Virginia Supreme Court will hear a Republican lawsuit on Tuesday challenging the restoration of voting rights of 206,000 felons by Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe. From the Canadian News Network in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, I'm Rob McConnell. Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com. Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk.
Welcome back. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Before we get any further with our good friend talking to us about that dastardly ghost in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, I'd like to reach out to an old friend of mine, Bill Peckham. In fact, you've heard his commercials here, William S. Peckham. It's his birthday today, or it was his birthday yesterday, depends on what part of the country you're in. So, Bill, if you're listening, to you, my good friend, happy birthday. And give Lynn a kiss from me. And you are loved, Billy boy. I used to be his producer. If anybody remembers the Mike Hammer radio show, Bill Peckham, Mike Hammer, my good friend. Karen Forrest is our guest this hour. We're talking about angels, ghosts, things that go bump in the night. And you have to tell me about the ghastly, ghostly, bad ghost of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. I'm sitting here on pins and needle.
What this was it can be rather fascinating, but also alarming, knowing it's so real that you see these in movies, but it's different when it's real life. And what happened was, I was hired by a businessman in downtown Dartmouth. He was getting ready to open up a business, and he called me and says, "Karen, I don't know if I really even believe in ghosts, but I was referred to you because here's my problem." He went on to explain how he had felt the presence of this very angry woman in the building that he was getting ready to establish as a business, and it was creeping him out. And at first, he could tell, he could feel her around her, and then thought, okay, I'm just going to pretend this isn't happening. But then what happened was that they can be very destructive and angry ghosts, and she was extremely angry. So she had left the business door open after he closed it late one night after he left the business. Unlocked the door and left it wide open. This is downtown Dartmouth. Not a good idea, right? And so he thought, okay, this is bad. And he said, I tried to talk to her, Karen. I tried to tell her, look, please, let's just try to, live together. You can be a ghost here, but just please don't do stuff like that. And but she was angry. And so then the next night, what she had done is that she had taken a piece of soap, and he showed it to me afterwards. A piece of soap. Plugged it into the sink and turned the water on full blast. Like, it's hard to believe this stuff. This is movie type stuff, right? And caused thousands of dollars in damage in the building, which then delayed the opening of the businesses in there because they had to fix up the water damage. And it was at that point he called me and said, "This is now serious. This is now costing me money with the damage this ghost done." And he says, and I still find it hard to believe, but there's no sign, especially when she did the water damage, that anyone was in the building, because at that night she hadn't unlocked the door. She just did this damage herself, right? And she did. And once so of course I said, look, this is serious now. I got to clear this place immediately. So I did it like within hours of him calling me before she could do any more damage to the building. And when I was tuning into her energy and I was talking to her, just trying to help her cross over to the light, and I was asking her, like, well, seriously, what are you so angry about? And she made it very clear, like, once she calmed down enough to talk to me, and that took a bit of time. she was angry because previously it actually is an older building. It actually had been a crack house, and she had OD'd in there, and she was mad because she didn't want to die. She wanted her drugs, but she didn't want to die. So
Too late. She's already dead.
Yep, already dead, but hadn't crossed over. She was stuck because her anger wasn't letting her cross over because she was still trying to get even with the guy who sold her the bad drugs. Right, so she was mad, and it took a long time to calm her down and cross her over. She did finally succeed in crossing over, and I was grateful for that. But it took a bit of time. But that was one of the angriest ghosts. But that's stuff that's the stuff you read in horror books and see on movies, and this is real life stuff for me and my clients. Right?
Have you ever had an occasion to look at one of the clearings that you were doing in a humorous sense? Like, do ghosts sometimes have sense of humor? Do they play practical jokes on you?
No, not ghosts. No, I wish they did. But the reality is a ghost, like a person who hasn't crossed over, a dead person who hasn't crossed over, they're sad, they're lost, they're confused, sometimes angry, But a sense of humor, absolutely, no, that's not what they have. Angels and God will have a sense of humor. I'll see that with them, with the signs they give and the way they talk. But ghosts, no, not at all. No, mostly what I feel around them is a sense of loss and sadness and confusion. I
would imagine that it can be confusing for the spirits or the ghost, especially if they don't know they're dead.
Yeah, if they haven't clued in they're dead, or they don't want to hear they're dead, or they don't know how to cross over, they come across truly as confused, and that's why. It's part of my job when I clear houses and buildings. It's not just to clear out the negative energy. I take it to the next level, as God has guided me to help them cross over so that they're not stuck. This is a soul. This is a real live person, a soul here, and I don't want them stuck for eternity. I don't wish that on any person, right? So that's why I work really hard at crossing them over, too. Yeah. In a very compassionate way.
How haunted is Halifax after the big explosion that ripped apart in the Halifax harbor?
Here's another story for you. I have another house I did. Extremely haunted, okay? Because Halifax is rich in so much history, including from the Halifax explosion, but other things too. And one time I was clearing a house, and it was a sailor, a Halifax sailor, who lived in downtown Halifax, in the hardest hit area of where the explosion occurred. And this was an original home, all right? It was a heritage house he had bought. And he said, look, I know there's ghosts, I know there's spirits here, and please clear this for me. So he went out to sea on a Canadian ship, and while he was out to sea, I had done a house clearing for him. And I was tuning in the energy, and what would happen, which was unique to him, and I've never seen it or experienced this since, is the amount of ghosts, the amount of earthbound spirits I cleared out of one place at one time. I've never seen anything like it. Normally when I clear a house, there could be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 ghosts, right? That's a lot if I see 4. This one, he had so many in the house, but what happened was as I was clearing the house, the light that I used, calling upon angels and God to do the clearing, so that invokes a lot of divine light, was attracting more earthbound spirits in the area. And I saw a lineup, and I'm like, so I asked God, like, what is going on? I've never experienced anything like this, and it was confusing me. And God said, Karen, these are people who all died in the explosion. There's still that many earthbound spirits from the explosion, and they're coming because they're attracted to the light and other people who had died and had basically haunted this house. And now they're all trying to cross over. There must have been at least 30 or 40 of them, and I've never seen anything like that before or experienced it since.
So you had your own fan club?
Yeah, our own fan club of all these people lined up, and more children. It was actually kind of sad. Like, there's a lot of children in that lineup. Parents, children, because what was happening was when the children had died, some of the parents might have died afterwards. They might not have died in the explosion, but they became stuck looking for their children, right? They didn't cross over either.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was. It was sad. It was one of the most. It was truly the most emotional one I ever did. It was the only one I've ever cried in a house clearing. So normally I'm not an emotional person that way, and I have it together. But that was the only time, and I've done thousands of house clearings, that I literally cried because it was so emotional for me to see something like that. Yeah.
What happened while you were in the military? Did you do any of your special work there? Did you ever clear a tank of a ghost or a spirit or a barracks? Or?
Not so much when I was in the military, because I only started my training just before I retired from the military. So the clearings I started probably 4 or 5 years into my career working as a spiritual counselor. It wasn't even right away, because that takes more experience and practice and training to do that type of work. So I do remember in the military, like I remember when I was in Bosnia, and I had gone out for a ride on, like in a tank with some of the Army personnel, and we're seeing bombed out houses, and I felt the presence of ghosts. There's no doubt in my mind they were there, the people who had died and still stuck there from the war, right? Who died suddenly from bombings in the war. And I know other guys in the military, they've told me stuff like too, and they truly believe, they're experiencing the presence of ghosts. I just didn't know at that time, have the training on what to do with it. I didn't know how to clear them at that point. But I certainly experienced it in my military career. I talk about it too in my book. Another time where I didn't even always believe in ghosts. I mean, that was always a stretch in my imagination too.
So what? So let me ask you, what happened? Yeah. If you didn't believe in ghosts, to now here you are clearing ghosts. What happened to make you turn into a believer?
Because I kept hearing them and seeing them and being divinely guided to clear them. And it's hard for me to ignore that and pretend it's not there when I'm seeing them and hearing them.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's hard for me to say, hey, they're not there. And I'm like, oh, but I hear them and I'm seeing them and I'm feeling them. So, it's hard for me to say they don't exist when I can feel them and hear them.
You feel them metaphorically, right? Not physically.
No, I can feel them physically, dude.
Really?
I can feel them touching my arm or trying to push me aside, or I can feel a coolness around me. Yeah. It depends on how mean they are, or angry they are, as to how much I'm going to feel them. And hearing them is not pleasant, by the way, either, because when I hear angry ghosts, like that female I talked about who plugged up the sink and caused thousands of dollars in damage, when I was trying to clear that place, she was mad at me for clearing it, because I'm trying to get rid of her and her negative energy. And a lot of swearing going on, being directed at me, so I hear a lot of that because my primary way of receiving messages is hearing them. And there was a time I talked about it in my book. I went on a ghost tour, which, that's always interesting for me as a medium, going on a ghost tour. I went on a ghost tour in Halifax, getting beautiful, rich history there. Yeah. And there was a ghost out by the old cemetery. It's called the old cemetery, the old burial grounds. And he was a sailor, it turned out, and he realized I could hear him. And he started swearing at me to get lost, get off this turf, leave him alone, bugger off, the whole bit. And no one else is hearing this, just me. And I'm whispering what I'm hearing to my friend, who's real fascinated. I'm like, well, this is not fun for me to be hearing right now. And at one point I had to ask God to just take that ghost away from me, because he kept trying to hit my friend. He kept trying to push him in the arm, right? And my friend's going, Karen, I feel something cool. What's going on? I'm like, yeah, it's because the ghost was just trying to push you.
Okay, so let me understand this. You take somebody on a date on a ghost tour?
Yeah, a friend of mine. Yeah, he wasn't a date. He was a friend of mine. But yeah, we went on a ghost tour. He wanted to go with me, knowing I'm a medium and I can pick up on the energy of the ghosts. And he said, that'll be more fun to go with you because you're going to make it more real for me. And he says, well, I want to know everything that you hear and experience and notice that I won't pick up on. So I was telling him what I was experiencing during the ghost tour.
Do you know, I had a young lady on a couple of months ago from one of the ghost research groups in the United States who was actually molested by a ghost.
Yeah, and I don't talk about that much, but unfortunately it can happen, which is, again, why I take it very seriously when I tell people, if you have a ghost, please get your house properly cleared, because over time they become more intrusive, and over time they become more physical, and that includes inappropriate touching, trying to have sex with you, which just sounds disgusting, and it is. So I've had people call me up saying, oh my God.
Wait a sec, hold on here. Let's back up. How does a ghost, a dead entity who has no mask, how do you have sex like that?
You'll feel it. You'll feel them. You will feel it. I've had people call me up and say, this ghost has gone from touching me to trying to kiss me. They feel it. That's what they do. They'll feel it. To trying to say they want to have sex, to feeling like someone's body's being pressed on them. which is horrible, right? And I'm like, get your house cleared. Like, this is a simple solution. For God's sakes, get your house cleared. You don't need that nonsense. That's why, ghosts are not entertainment value, even though I try to keep light of talk about it when I'm on shows.
Sure.
But there is that darker side for sure. That's very unpleasant. I tell people, just get it cleared. Just get it cleared, and that will solve that problem. Yeah. But it can happen.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what happened to Mary, Jesus' mother.
Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Immaculate conception, because there have been reported cases where virgins have had babies.
Yeah. I like to believe that's more divine than ghost stuff, but who knows, right?
Well, there is a Holy Ghost, right?
Yeah, well, that'd be holy, but my term of a ghost is a negative dead person, right? Dead person hasn't crossed over yet, which is different than pure love and pure light, yeah.
So they don't have a ghost of a chance, yeah.
So it's very disturbing. That's why when people say, how do you know there's signs of ghosts in my house? Well, I'll get those phone calls. Ghost is trying to touch me inappropriately. Yeah, that's not good. I had another lady call me one time, totally freaked out. A ghost was trying to choke her, and she felt it. She felt this ghost trying to choke her.
Was it her ex-husband?
No, it wasn't. Yes, surprisingly enough. No, it was. What it turned out is interesting, Rob. What it turned out is that her next door neighbor was into voodoo and was invoking all these negative spirits, all these negative entities, which then were crossing her wall in her townhouse and coming into her apartment. And at first, the earthbound spirit was containing himself to her spare bedroom. So then she had this beautiful brand new condo or townhouse.
Right.
That beautiful room that her nephew wouldn't stay in, she wouldn't stay in, no guests wanted to stay in it, they'd sleep on the couch before they'd sleep on that. Again, that's a sign, right? You don't want to be in a certain part of your house because it's creeping you out. But then it got worse because then one night the ghost just came into the room and she said, I was screaming out to God, I was clutching my Bible, and then I called you at 6 a.m. and she did. At 6 a.m. she's calling me going, my God, what do I do? Like, we got to clear your house now. You don't need this going on every night.
So how do you clear the house? Yeah. I mean, do you move the furniture or what do you do?
Yeah, what I do, most of the time I do my work from a distance, which means I don't really have to be in the house.
Oh, cool.
I don't want to be in the house in that crappy energy either. That's just draining. So there's a few steps, but the key thing I tell people when I'm doing the work with house clearings, I am evoking a divine being, which is normally God and Archangel Michael, to do the clearing. So they're going to your house, not me. I'm the one that gets paid. It's not, Archangel Michael doesn't get the payment, I do. They do all the work. I get paid for it, but my job is to be the human facilitator for it. So there's three key steps. The first is invoking a divine source to clear the negative energy out of there. So I ask Archangel Michael to do that. Then I invoke pure love and pure light and other positive emotions into the home. And then the third step is adding angelic protection so that it permanently stays clear. So it stays that way for as long as you own the house.
Stand by. We've got to take our final break. X-Zone Nation, Karen Forrest is our special guest. She is the Angel Lady. Well, the last time we talked to her, it was in Nova Scotia. This time, she's in Prince Edward Island, a beautiful part of Canada. If you'd like to visit her online, her website is www.karenforrest.com, and Forrest has 2 R's. I'll be back on the other side of this break with Karen as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the esoteric series, modern esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Manifestation is driven by imagination, intent, and passion. In our culture, all three have been distorted and disabled by modern media and exploitation. Re-engage your imagination and your passion by entering into the world of paranormal romance. Kahir O'Donnell takes her readers on an exciting journey into the endless possibilities of loving, passionate, and mutually respectful male-female relationship. Her latest book, The Long Dark Night, features special ops adventure, a daring rescue, a psychic woman from the stars, and a special agent that will die to protect her. The Long Dark Night by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or Amazon.com. Listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. Now, if you're a night hawk and if you can't sleep and you'd like to listen to some good radio, this is the place to be. xzbn.net is one of the many websites. You can listen to us on the IPBN radio network at ipbn.com. Let me see. I've got a list here. I think there's 20 or 30 other places where you can listen to us, but we're all over the place. Now, before we get back to our guest, do you guys remember Psychic Mark Anthony that we've had on the show? Well, he's got an Explorer Mystical Mayan cruise that is happening on October 22nd until October the 27th from Fort Lauderdale to Cozumel and Costa Maya. While at sea, there will be 2 days of events with Mark Anthony with time left to relax aboard the Royal Princess. Now, when you book 2 tickets, you get 1 free all-access pass to the Mark Anthony cruise events. And if you'd like more information, you can go to his website at, evidenceofeternity.com. Karen Forrest is our guest, the Angel Lady. She's been dealing with angels, ghosts, and things that go bump in the night throughout the Maritimes, from Halifax, Dartmouth, now to PEI. Listen, how did the teacher know to give you a call when you were just new to PEI? You must have a heck of a good reputation.
Yeah. Although I'm new to living in PEI, but I've been doing this work so many years now. I'm quite well known throughout Canada. So I have quite a few Prince Edward Island clients even before I moved here.
So what do you think about the new Ghostbuster movie that's coming out? You know, 4 ghost-busting ladies compared to the 4 Ghostbuster guys.
It looks like fun. I haven't seen it yet, but I do want to see it. I saw the original on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, and it was funny. I got a laugh out of it for sure. And sometimes it can be quite real. It's just, again, it's not. It's funny when you watch it on TV. It's not so funny as I describe in real life when stuff is happening to you. But I actually want to see this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be fun. Listen, what words of wisdom do you have for our listeners tonight?
Yeah, really what I encourage people is to take time in their lives, like every few months, to say, you know, am I where I want to be in life? Like, do I feel like I'm on my life path? And again, don't get wrapped up what's your life path or what you're supposed to be doing. Just get a feel, do I feel like I'm doing the right thing in life right now? And you know, sit down, meditate on that question and ask that, because I really encourage people to each day look at doing what feels right for you, and by doing that, you're going to honor your life path wherever it takes you. And I also encourage people, because it's summertime, really take some time to have some fun, right? Like go out to the beaches or to the lakes, or be outside in the heat.
Right.
You know, not everyone is timid from the ocean like I am, but just get outside and enjoy the sunshine and enjoy the weather while we have it in the summer.
Karen, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to the next time that we meet here in the X Zone. Maybe you'll have some more dirty, disgusting ghost stories to tell us.
Stories, I'm sure I will.
All right, take care of yourself, my friend.
So much.
Be safe and enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, sweetie. X Zone Nation, Karen Forrest has been our guest. www.karenforrest.com. Don't forget, Forrest has 2 R's. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone, talking about the Roswell case of 1947 with one of the most eminent investigators that has gone there and written several books. Tom Carey is our special guest as we continue right here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.